And that should tell you exactly where I am. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Norman Goodfellows. And welcome not to Johannesburg, not to South Africa. This is not Hartbeespoort. Damn, gee, I wish it was. Instead, I find myself on the Amalfi coast. And I've been here on the Sorrento coast over the course of this week, doing some very research on behalf of all South African wine lovers and the rest of our viewers around the world. The chance to explore and to discover Italian wine, the grapes with which we are not so familiar, particularly in South Africa, and the people who turn them into the wine of Italy, which is way more than just Chiantis and Super Tuscans. There's wine all over the country, and today on the Amalfi coast, I meet the wine of Marisa Cuomo, and I'm really excited to do so, not just because it's allowed me to meet Marisa herself, but also to meet the team to try this wine and to do so in the most exquisite of settings. And in just a moment, we will be meeting very briefly Marisa. We'll also be meeting Rita, who's head of global tasting, or something equally important. But before we do that, here's a quick look at the latest wine news. So this is a throwback to Sunday night. Now, when I came over to Italy, I spoke to a few people about where to go. And you might remember a couple of months ago, we ran a show having a look at some of the best wine of Italy, the Italian Wine Showcase in Cape Town. And that's where I met the Italian Consul General to Cape Town, who told me, if you're going to Italy, you have to stay in Sorrento. So we went and stayed in Sorrento. And he said, if you're going to stay in Sorrento, you have to eat at the Ristorante Lorelei. Ristorante Lorelei is a Michelin-starred restaurant. It was a 5-course tasting menu extravaganza, and there you can see some of those dishes that came through. There were a whole range of them, but the highlights were 2 things in particular: having a chance to eat some amberjack, local fish, done in a hazelnut ganache that was just obscenely good, but on top of that, also the chance to try out some local wine. That was some Tuscan wine, but it was also the Falanghini, which is I think I've spoken that correctly. It is a local white grape, and we'll get an introduction to that. But this was a really, really good introduction to Italian food, Italian wine of the very highest level. And this was some time at Pompeii. And the reason I bring up Pompeii, that's the antiquarium behind, which is the museum at the ruins. Lovely to get there, having read the Robert Harris novel, having studied the area in school history. But there was a comment from our tour guide, which is brilliant, talking about the wine, where wine had added to it. They added sugar, they added water, they added all sorts of things, mainly because, to quote our guide, the wine itself was rubbish. So it was to try and make it taste a little better. This was 79 AD. And just before, wine has improved considerably since then, but there is very much a long history of making and drinking wine in this part of the world. And this is a throw forward to London next week. I am in London hosting an event for the Nickel Foundation through the restaurant High Timber. We've got a selection of top South African wine, and we are going to be showcasing that over a 3-course meal at High Timber. Greg Sherwood, Master of Wine, will be with me. Sean Fitzpatrick, the great All Black captain, will be with me, and it'll be the chance to drink some great wine. There'll be an auction as well, and we're raising money for the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, which also does terrific work here in Italy. There's a project in Naples, a rugby project that is doing great work. If you're in London next Tuesday, that's the 30th of May, you'd like to come along, loads of great South African wine, a terrific meal, and a chance to support a wonderful, wonderful cause. And then one for South Africa. This is actually the same night. This is the food and wine pairing at the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg. Gerard Holden will be up from Franschhoek, and the chance to taste the Big G amongst the other wines of Holden Mance that do so well. It's all big, sturdy, full wine that's made beautifully, and it's going to go delightfully with Chef Ransley Peterson's food. So if you're back in South Africa, Johannesburg next Tuesday, one for you at the Old Oak with Holden Mance. And then finally, on a slightly sad note, this is Martin Moore. Now, you might remember him from the show. He's been on the show a number of times. Winemaker at Durbanville Hill, cellar master. This is Martin and myself exploring the cellar during our Adventures in Chenin series that we did with the Chenin Blanc Association a few years back. Martin was a great raconteur, spoke beautifully about wine at length, but with great entertainment. And sadly, a heart attack taking Martin from us just a few days ago. His funeral coming up next Monday. A man we remember fondly, and look out for an upcoming show as we pay tribute to a great South African winemaker who was just outstanding when it came to passing on his knowledge and being such a wonderful sounding board for young winemakers. Martin, we remember you fondly, sending love and strength to his family and to the team at Durbanville Hills, leaving behind a wonderful legacy, gone too soon, but really great memories from Martin Moore. All right, on that note, let's get into today's show. Just a moment, Rita's going to come and join me. But before we do that, I caught up in the cellar a little earlier on this morning with Marisa Cuomo herself. Now, unfortunately, Marissa's English is not, she wasn't comfortable to come on the show with it. My Italian is non-existent, other than naming a few midfielders from Naples. So instead, what we did was we caught up with her in the cellar. And here she is giving a quick introduction to the estate she calls home.
Buongiorno a tutti, io sono Marisa Cuomo, titolare della cantina di Furore, Gran Furore di Vina Costiera. Ci troviamo nella bottaia, dove riposano i vini, sia il fior d'uva che i Furori Rosso Riserva. Questa è stata scavata nella roccia dolomitica calcarea. È un ambiente ideale per la conservazione dei vini, lontano da rumore, sbalzi di temperatura e quant'altro. Diciamo che questo è un luogo ideale perché la temperatura è sempre naturale, non scende di sotto dei 13 gradi e non supera i 18 gradi in piena estate. I vini qua riposano gioiosamente e insieme alla mia famiglia, i miei figli e mio marito lavoriamo qua in questa azienda, dove il fiore all'occhiello del nostro paese, Furore.
Right, so there we go. That was Marisa Cuomo. Thank you, Marisa, for hosting us. And thank you, Rita, for having
Hello,
us.
everyone. Hello.
I have to say, I often say this about South African wine estates, but this is the next level. I would never get any work done here at all. This place is magnificent.
Yeah. Well, around here, the winery was born 40 years ago as a wedding gift. So it was a huge
It's a wedding present.
story. Yeah, from the husband to the wife. And well, Andrea gifted the wife this winery that he bought from his uncle, and he truly believed in the amazing wife he has and the work she would be able to do. And together, they made it into what it is today. And now they're making actually one of the best wines in Italy. Fiorduva, our best wine, has won just the Oscar for best white wine.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Forza.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised you say that, because when I was doing some research and I was telling people I'm going to be in Campania, I'm going to be on the Amalfi coast, where should I go? The name Marisa Cuomo came up time and again. What is it about the terroir, about the owners, the winemakers? What is the secret to the success here?
So it starts well from this love story and this passion the owners, Marisa and Andrea, have for their land that you can see around here. It's well, you can tell because it's not that easy to grow vines around here. So they truly believe in their land. It's this microclimate we have, being next to the sea, the breeze that comes from the sea, that cleans the air, that makes our vines live so long. We have vines over 100, 200 years old, and they love being here. And plus this rock we have that you've seen just before with Marisa in the cellar, it's a limestone rock. Limestone rock, it holds the water and then it gives it back to the vines that they will get the water they need when it's not raining enough. Plus the soil. The soil we have here is volcanic. The volcanic soil came throughout the centuries from the Vesuvius. The Vesuvius seems to be distant from us, but just behind the mountain. So throughout the centuries, the wind blew the ashes here. They settle on the soil, and now we have this amazing soil, which makes it us also possible to have these vines that are not grafted. These vines survived phylloxera. So we are one of the few places around Europe that had this land to survive. And you can tell, well, the vines here give you these amazing grapes. We have these 3 native grapes that we use to make this best white wine, Fiorduva. Well, these 3 grapes are so different from any other grapes. There are 3 white grapes that are full of flavors and from the sea, from the rock, from the land. So that all goes in the best white we produce. So when you drink Fiorduva, you'll be reminded of Amalfi Coast. Yeah.
Now we're going to drink some of that wine in just a
Yeah.
moment. Before we do that, when I arrived, walking in, having a look at some of the pictures, just having a look at the area around me, it's not very flat. You're pretty much on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to not just grow the wine, but also to harvest the grapes in these conditions?
That's so true. Well, in fact, the viticulture that we have here is called heroic. We actually have heroes to do everything because, well, heroic viticulture comes when it's a definition we have in Italy. Every time the percentage of the slope is higher than 30%, it's already heroic. Here, the percentage of the slope is 65. That makes it even more. But yeah, that's why we need more than 80 people during harvest time. We have vineyards all along Amalfi Coast, from Pietri sul Mare all the way to Positano, and from very close to the sea and very high. So that makes it. But again, it's all the love and passion that the family has for the land. Even if it's so hard, well, it wouldn't be easy to quit, but they didn't. So yeah.
Give me a sense of the numbers here. What sort of space do you have under vine, and how many people are working here?
So we have, we work on 40 hectares in total of vineyards that stretch all along Amalfi Coast. We produce 200,000 bottles per year, which is a nice number. It's not that high, and it's mostly white wine. We're known 65% of the production is white. We also produce one rosé and some reds, and they're all nice and dry wines. And yeah, well, the space in the winery, it's a nice tiny space. We have about 15 people working in the winery and 8 people working in the vineyards throughout the year, and plus 80 people working on during harvest time, because since everything is done by hand, that's no machines. You can't get with machines of these terraces, so everything is done by hand. Yeah, so we need a lot of. And I have to say, most of the workers we have are all locals. Locals, because for them it's not as hard to work on this land that we have. Yeah.
So there's a wonderful history to it. What about the love of wine? Marisa was obviously bought this present because she loved wine. What is her wine background, and how did her love of wine come about?
So she got married. She was very young. She was 19 when she got married. So she didn't have a lot of background in wine, but it was more about the love of this land and the passion and for this little town. And she's such a, you saw her earlier in the cellar, and she's just such an amazing lady there. Yeah, she's hardworking lady. She's always in the winery making the wine, and well, it's yeah. So actually, yeah, no background, but she got into it and she did her best. At the beginning, when they started, obviously, it wasn't like it is today. It was such a small world, a reality, and she was the one who was working in the vineyards, bottling the wine by hand, doing everything by hand. Well, now obviously with 200,000, it's not done everything by hand anymore. Luckily, I mean, in the winery, but yeah, she just got the winery and she made it what it is today.
Let's lead into the wine, which I'm very excited to try. In South Africa, we can kind of make any grape we want anywhere we want. I know that in France, it's quite specific. If you are here, this is what you can make. What are the rules like in Italy? Can you make anything you want anywhere, or are there some restrictions?
No, there are restrictions. Like for us, under here, we are, Amalfi Coast belongs to DOC, which is our registration that stands for Denomination of Control Origin. It's a certification of quality that we give to consumers. So obviously, if our wine is under DOC, so we have to follow different rules. First of all, like all our wines are blends of 2 grapes at least from the land that we have. we would use from the white grapes, Falanghina and Biancolella, this blend. They're good grapes that grow mostly. Biancolella is a grape that grow mostly on the islands or along the coast. And Falanghina instead is a more common grape that we have in south of Italy. Our red grapes are Piedirosso and Aglianico, and again, they're grapes that grow mostly around this area. And we have these three native grapes that grow here. Ginestra, Ripoli, and Fenile that make our best white one. They were born here, so obviously we use these ones that represent so much of this land. And well, restrictions, we do have many restrictions from the land that we're not allowed to irrigate. We use pergola systems and Guyot, that's the only we can use for like according following the rules of DOC, and plus we, well, in the winemaking process, we follow the natural cork, for example. That's another rule we have to follow. Well, natural cork is the best choice. You can go for all the treatments we use are natural treatments from the vines itself into the winery, only clarification process in a natural way, which would be using cold temperature. Yeah.
Right. I've had some Falanghina as part of blends, and
Yeah.
I've had it on its own as well. It's got a beautiful, almost sort of Pinot Grigio like fruit to
Yeah,
it.
true.
That was very appealing. I can't wait to try your first one. So, can we try your
Well,
first
we're
wine?
gonna try now Fior d'Uva, which the name actually comes from Fiord, which we are the only place that have this fiord in Italy, and Uva, which means grape in Italy. And yeah, like we said, it's a blend of three grapes: Ginestra, Ripoli, and Fenile. It's a meditative kind of wine. Now that we're gonna enjoy it together, you can literally yeah, sense everything that you have around. Yeah, and it's a white wine, I have to say, just before we taste it, that evolves in time, because the process of this white one is going into French oak barrels, brand new, so obviously it becomes even a more complex wine with a bit of vanilla flavors given from the oak,
And that's
all these
100% of the wine into new barrel.
so it would be two grapes going into brand new barrels, and
Yeah.
there would be there would be Fenile and Ripoli. They grow only in this little town, Furore. Ginestra grows along Amalfi because Ginestra only does stainless steel. So we
Nice
assemble
balance.
them to find balance. That's
Okay.
correct. And then Fior d'Uva, next time you enjoy after 7 years from the harvest, because that's when it reaches the peak
Sure.
of maturation and taste.
Right.
Gonna grab it,
All
and
right.
that would be the
Ta-da.
one.
All right.
Well, now we're gonna see a still lighter bit of color, but in the evolving process, it's gonna become obviously a more yellow, deeper color.
So, how old then is this bottle? Which vintage will
Well,
this be?
this is the newest one, the youngest. This is 2021, the one which had just won the Oscar. Yeah.
I'm in
But
good
it's
company.
still, it's an amazing, good, refreshing wine, young.
And what do I say now? I say cheers. Ciao.
Salute.
Salute. Salute.
Yes.
All right.
What do you
Ooh,
think?
I think it's incredibly
Can you
rich.
smell a bit of apricots that
Mm.
we have from this amazing land? And the sea, it's a very rich, deep wine.
I have to consider it slightly more than I normally would, because you could probably give me anything in this venue and I think, oh, it's amazing.
That's so true.
The sunlight's catching the wine in the morning. It's beautiful. But yeah, when you consider it, it is incredibly rich. It is very textured. It's got that citrus blast, which reminds me of the wine I've had so far, just coming through and lifting to the fore. I can see why it's won lots of awards, but I also get the sense, you mentioned the 7-year-old grape being optimal, that it's wine. If I did buy a case of it, I'd do well to put some of it aside and just let it start to develop.
So you see, in order to have this bottle of wine, we only use grapes from vines, very old vines that are over 7. So it's a selection of grapes. Obviously, older vines over 70 years old, they give you so much. Yes, you do produce less, but then at the end, what you get, it's a wine that
So in South Africa, our old vine project, which we're very proud of, has vines that are over 35 years old. We think those are pretty old. So 70, that's extraordinary.
That is really, we tend to use, even for the entry-level wine that we produce, only grapes from vines that are over 50 years old. So you aim to, every detail is so important to make a good wine at the end. This is a Riserva wine, a wine that gets better in time. So this one will be obviously older grapes, older vines.
It's got such an all-encompassing mouthfeel. It just washes right through the whole palate. It is very seductive. All right.
Well, we start from the top, and now we'll taste some of our less deeper,
more everyday,
correct.
One last question, just as we wrap up on this. It's obviously difficult if you're not tasting this at home, but we'll try and give you a sense of it in terms of what we're drinking here. How for you do the three grapes come together to give us the mouthfeel and the taste of this particular wine?
So the blend is always these three grapes, and most of all that would be the grapes from Furore, Ripoli, and Fenile that give you this taste that you're tasting right now. So this nice taste that you can smell of that you can smell from the breeze coming from the sea that goes into the wine, and these flavors from the land, a bit of mostly apricot we can smell. And these are the grapes, these so much different grapes that we have that give you these flavors, Ripoli and Fenile mostly.
Clearly it pairs very well with a bright sunny day at the start of the Italian summer. What about food? Because I've noticed that Italians kind of like their food. I think every second building I've seen is a restaurant, and it's more than just pizza and pasta. There's such depth to the Italian menu. If I come around for dinner at your house, what are you serving with this?
So this is it's wine that can easily be paired even with a nice strong cheese. Italy is known for our nice and strong cheeses, but since we're saying a nice sea obviously place, this one should be paired with a fatty fish, either with a nice bowl, pasta with anchovies, it could very go along well, or a nice second fresh fatty fish. So the fish will balance the good and deep flavor that we get here.
I had some tuna pasta in Amalfi with my driver Fogel yesterday, and it was glorious. I think this would have made it even more. So great suggestion. All right, look, I could happily stay on this for the rest of the day, but you have more wine. So let's try our second wine. As that comes in, if you're watching, we are at Marisa Cuomo, where we are sampling a selection of wine in the most sublime surrounds here on the Amalfi coast in Italy, which is purely for research purposes. This is very hard work indeed, and I am dredging through it. So it's been a beautiful day to explore and to try a winery that has given me great joy so far. Okay, so the first white wine is done. This is on to white wine number 2. Now this is the Furore, and I see you've got a Furore white and red, so that's obviously a bit of a trademark label.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Furore, our wine is under, because our DOC Amalfi Coast, it's there are 3 smaller areas, and Furore is one of them. And since we are in Furore, obviously where our winery, our area, that's our little town, where we decided to let you taste the wine from Furore. So starting from Fiorduva, which is a Furore Bianco Riserva, now we're gonna go into Furore Bianco, which is our Falanghina and Biancolella blend, which is more delicate. Only the winemaking process will ferment and maturate only in stainless steel, cooler temperatures to preserve all the aromas that this wine has.
All right, well, I just happen to have a glass of it here, which is rather helpful. There's also a bottle, which we can grab there just to have a look at it. And I saw this because this was at a restaurant I was at recently. The label, that looks rather familiar.
Yeah, it does. I guess why. With the bottle here.
All right. So in terms of again the grapes here, give us just a little bit more information on them and how they come together for this particular blend.
So we would use for this Furore Bianco only grapes, as it is the smaller area from DOC, which is Furore. So these Falanghina and Biancolella will be the ones that grow only in Furore and Conca, which is the town just next to us. And these blend, which we will start harvesting a later harvest, so that would be end of September, beginning of October for these grapes that we will then obviously ferment and maturate into stainless steel and bottle them by about February and March to give you this great wine, which is our entry level kind of wine. So it's a wine that as soon as you get it, well, try and drink it.
All right. So not one to store quite as long as the other.
Yeah.
It's got that lovely sort of deep grapefruit feel to it. That often that sort of Muscat d'Alexandre the flavor when you pick up the sweet on the nose, but it's different on the palate, and it's I think again a great wine for some food. So what am I having this with when it comes to Rita's kitchen?
So my kitchen will be just again fish, a nice fresh fish, but a more lighter, the blue zone fish that we have around here. Nice sea bream, delicate, and some blue fishes that we have, nice and fresh. That would be go very well along with this wine. This is a good balance. It's a nice dry wine with a good balance of sapidity and acidity given from this soil that we have, which is volcanic, which gives you a lot of acidity. But here it's finally blends, finally in a good way, it's blend into this wine, which well, gonna taste.
And what about the people who are drinking this? Is most of your wine going to surrounding shops, hotels, restaurants, or do you send it a lot further afield?
Well, we do. We of all our production, 60% would say in Italy. A lot stays in Amalfi to give the chance to our people coming from around the world to taste this gorgeous wine, and 40% goes abroad. We try to get a bit everywhere. Obviously, since it's 200,000 bottles, we unfortunately don't manage, but it's important to go and also outside Amalfi Coast with this wine.
Possibly South Africa at some stage in the future.
After this amazing interview, we will. Yeah.
All right, one last wine to try, and this is one I'm already familiar with because I went out to dinner in Via Tre sul Mare a couple of nights ago, and we sat down at a restaurant called Ivo's, a lovely restaurant in one of these beautiful little courtyards that they have all over Italy, where it's just full of charm but also full of noise and washing above us and people making their way around. It felt really warm and welcoming. And then I had a look through the wine list, and Marisa Cuomo, I recognize that name because this is the red. Now, you said to me at the start that the red is not something you do as much as the white. I have to say, I really enjoyed this over dinner, and so did everybody else who had it with us. Tell me about this particular red and why it is that the white is so dominant as opposed to the reds that you make.
Well, the white is more dominant given that we produce obviously more white since we have more white grapes, and the white grapes here grow with more flavors. But even our red, you tasted the other day and you could tell that it's still full of flavors. All the wines we produce, actually the best thing they do, they represent the land. So you can smell, taste, see the colors of all the flavors we have. With the red wine we're gonna taste, which is a Furore Rosso, which is our more delicate, nice and soft, medium light body red. This Furore Rosso only does 3 months in the third cycle of our barrels, French oak barrels. We also produce more, deeper, full body red, and that would be the Furore Rosso Riserva, and that would be more, on to go next to a strong dish of meat, but since it's such a gorgeous day, we'd rather have something more refreshing. This furore rosso, you will smell all these berries and raspberries, blueberries. There we have.
Tell me about the alcohol
Well-
content, because a number of wines that I've had, I'm not sure what the content is here, but I've had quite a lot of wine that's been 14, 15. In fact, I think one was a 16% alcohol wine. And in South Africa, that would be considerable. And yet, even though I've had some wine with quite high alcohol content, it hasn't felt that way. There's still been a lightness to the wine.
That is true. Our Fiorduva, the first one we tasted, that has 14.5 alcohol content, which is very high, but you don't feel that because you focus more on the flavors the wine's giving you. While our entry level wine, they all have 13.5 alcohol content, which is still a higher, given from the time of our harvest. We do a later harvest to have this high content of sugar, then will have a high content of alcohol. So yes, they all have it, but again, it's you don't feel it. And plus, in the winemaking process, the use of sulfites we have in our white wine is such a minimum content that you don't taste it. You don't the wine is so natural. It is a natural wine. Actually, just to be in the theme of sulfites, the wine is now working on a project to make a white wine without sulfites. So that's a very interesting project, which is obviously hard to make a white wine without sulfites, but the wine is interesting always in improving and new projects that come along on the way. Yeah.
So this is the red. It's got a hard act to follow because both whites so far have been delightful. But I think it's going to do okay because I have, of course, had it before and it was lovely the other evening. And lovely again today. And where it is able to deliver, you look at these surrounds, you think this kind of weather, I can't possibly drink red wine. But there are people who don't like white wine. They don't like rosé particularly. And this has got enough delicacy and lightness to be able to, on a day like today, still have happily and not feel like you're drinking something completely wrong to the surroundings.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why the winery, is making these wines to give you the chance to have a good quality and a good wine in your glass.
Right, you've been a wonderful guide, introducing
you.
me to the wine of Marisa Cuomo in this quite beautiful part of the world. So thank you for it. I'm hoping that we're going to see some of this wine in South Africa
Yes,
in the not too
you
distant
certainly
future.
will.
But in between then, I'm just going to have to keep coming back and drinking some more in Amalfi.
Yeah, you're always welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you not just to Rita, but thank you to Marisa Cuomo, and thank you to Andrea, who was great in putting this together. And a big thank you to Fergal from Fermanagh Driving Services, who got me through here through some fairly nasty traffic. And a big hug and lots of love to Pamela and Brunello, the other reason I'm in this part of the world, who get married today. And they are celebrating a very special occasion in Cava de Tirreni as young love blossoms in Italy. And why not? What a beautiful place for it to happen. Before we go, just a reminder that we're almost at the end of May, which means your last chance to purchase a bottle of wine from Norman Goodfellows from the Haute Cabrera range and go into that competition to win a 15,000 Rand meal at one of three great restaurants, either Sol Sophie in Cape Town, Bel Punto in Durban, or Marble in Johannesburg. That prize to be announced at the beginning of next month. Somebody has to win it, so get shopping. We leave you not just these extraordinary views, they really are mesmerizing, and with a big thank you to Marisa and Rita, but also a big thank you to Andrea, who was the other person responsible, along with Stefano Gaba, of getting us here. And I will see you on Monday when we come to you live from London as Greg Sherwood and Aline Strauss and a group of winemakers join us from High Timber ahead of next Tuesday's charity dinner in support of the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation. I'm off to hit the beach. Have a great day. Ciao.